And I should be live. I should be live. So I will just rely on some of the people who are coming in or some of the people who are waiting to get in as I adjust the camera here to let me know if I can be seen and heard clearly. Can I be seen? Can I be heard? See me, hear me, touch me, feel me. Oh, Dragon says I can see and hear you on both. Oh, you're watching on both. Well, thank you very much. And I've got, come here. I have many, many visitors. Come here, Uncle. There we are. That is 20 pounds of cat. Big old uncle. How you doing, buddy? So I see Sean, Zane, Helter Skelter, Dragon, Anquay, Baki. Yeah, kitten. Hardly a kitten. Hardly a kitten at his weight and size. He's a big monster. He acts like a kitten, though. He plays with all of them. I see Mike. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon or this evening, depending upon where you are, because I am 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time where I am, middle of nowhere, Georgia. You may be on a different time zone. I know that people watch from different places. Come here. The twins are running around behind me there, so you might hear the pitter patter of little feet rushing around in the background. As we get into this, talk about some of the things that have been going on in the past week. Lion, yeah, he's a lion. He's like a cub. He's like a lion cub, the size of him. He's aggressive with strangers too. I can handle him, but he doesn't like people he doesn't know. Yeah, yay, Coffee Talk, indeed. Coffee Talk crossed over two channels here, Coffee Talk and Prepper University, and you should be able to see this on either channel. Miss Paperclip, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Hope all is well. Waiting to see if Legends shows up because I owe Legends a thank you. Legends sent something to the P.O. box. He actually sent a gift box. Of course, I do have a P.O. box. He sent a gift box with cat stuff in it, which is much appreciated. Any help I can get with the cats is always appreciated because we have a bunch of strays that we take care of. Clown World. Oh, ad suitability video. How I found. Oh, I hate that ad screen. No kidding. The ad suitability video. Which one? I've done a few, and the first one I did was when it was talking about the requirements, which are extremely vague. There's extremely vague requirements, so they can make it whatever they want. I mean, for example, if you were talking about firearms, even talking about or displaying Nerf guns could count, according to their bylaws, if you will. Yeah, very vague. I guess that must be the other one. Zane says, I only have one cat. Well, sometimes one is enough. One is enough. We have 4 in the house and we have 9 out back that we're taking care of. And we have 5 that we've rehomed in the last couple of months. I have one I would love to rehome. A hobo I would like to rehome because he can be a bit of a bully, which is hilarious because he has no teeth. Well, he has one tooth. The poor cat has one tooth. When he first showed up, he was starving to death. He was emaciated completely. You could see all of his ribs, and his voice was hoarse. Couldn't figure out what his problem was. He was swallowing the food that he was finding whole. Mini donkeys and dogs, Zane says. That's interesting. The mini donkeys keep the grass out of your yard. They eat a lot of grass and weeds. Well, some people get goats for that purpose. But one of the things that I had done just recently on the Prepper University channel is talking about the food. I did a short with the food. I showed a bag of rice, and it has a warning label about heavy metals, in particular lead, because a lot of the packaged foods, because of the farming techniques from the large industrial farms, as well as the manufacturing process, many of those foods end up with lead or mercury or some other metal contaminant. Zane says, "Donkey saved my house from the California brush fires." Yeah, there you go. And if you have a lot of land, it's usually a good idea to have grazing animals. And usually you can just let them do their own thing too. It's a great idea, actually. Plus, the mini donkeys are cute. But that's something that a lot of people are just really unaware of, is how toxic a lot of the industrialized food that they're eating is. Some of it doesn't even really count as food, or shouldn't count as food. It's called food grade. And I alluded to that in the follow-up video on that short from Prepper University, because as many of you might be aware, I used to work for PepsiCo. I worked for Frito-Lay. Frito-Lay is PepsiCo. PepsiCo is Yum Foods International, which is a huge umbrella of food and beverage products. However, I did work for Frito-Lay, and I pointed out a few things that I discovered while I was working at Frito-Lay with the manufacturing process. First and foremost is that not every state has a regulation that requires everything to be disclosed on their labels, on their nutritional labels. That's number one. And number two is that anything that happens, come on guys, anything that happens to the food prior to the actual processing does not count. And I gave a couple of examples, and I can run that over here for anyone who may not have heard that. There's some cats wrestling behind me. This is like, that's what you're hearing, is these two messing around. That's Daniel and Dusty. Dusty is the blue-gray one. Daniel's the one with the gray tiger stripes. But anyways, the two things, is that too bright? Let me turn that a little bit. The example that I gave was the enzyme drip. And I got another example that I could have mentioned in the video, but I didn't think of it at the time because we don't rehearse any of that. We just kind of talk. You know, we're out in the woods. We walk in the woods a lot out here. And she was like, "Hey, you know, you want to do a video? What do you want to talk about?" And she just films me and we just go. And that's how a lot of those happen. It's not, you know, scripted or anything like that. I don't have a teleprompter. I'm not balling out of control here. But did you see that one, Zane? Did you see that video on the Penny University? Yeah, CT says wine and beer is not required to list any ingredients. It's probably because it's fermented, because the alcohol should kill anything that's in it. But Zane did see it. The first thing was the enzyme, and that is, there's this enzyme that they buy, and I think they get it from Denmark. It's manufactured overseas, and it's shipped in cases, and each case has 4 1-gallon containers of this stuff, and it's like a square jug, a plastic jug, but it's kind of square, almost rectangular shaped. And there's a machine attached to the side of the milling apparatus. You have the corn is being boiled in overhead tanks, and after it's cooked long enough to soften it up to get the husks off, and I'll get into that a little bit, and that's what I should have talked about a little bit more. But when it's ready to run through, and it runs down through the hopper into the grinding machine, which is actually is grinding stones to make the corn maza, which is corn dough. In the water, this machine drips this enzyme, and the enzyme, they tell us in the when we were trained for it, because I was a skilled processor. I ran the machinery. I was like a kitchen foreman. And yeah, I'm talking to the biohackers at the Odin Project. Maybe you can tell me what this enzyme can do to your body. Yeah, they told us, don't try to take any of it home. It's safe, but don't touch it. Wear a mask when you handle it so that you, oh, hey, cruising, thanks for joining us. So that you don't inhale any of the fumes. Wear gloves, don't touch it, pour it in there, and set the drip and the drip should match the water flow. And the purpose of this enzyme is that it alters the readout for the nutritional label. So you would have, if you didn't drip the enzyme, you would get an entirely different set of facts on the nutrition label after processing. So, but they don't have to tell you about that enzyme or what it is. There's Dad on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. They don't have to tell you what it is or what it does because it happens before the cooking process. And we still don't know what the hell that enzyme was. They didn't really tell us. They just told us. They told us specifically what it changed, but I don't remember, to be honest. And going back even further, the corn comes in on in tanker trucks. You know, the big, like, the tankers that are on trains. They're usually black. They look like they should hold fluid. A lot of times those are full of grains. And so the corn is brought in that way. And it is also a hopper because it bevels down in the middle, and they open it up on the bottom, and there's this suction apparatus that pulls it up into the silos at the Frito-Lay plant where I worked anyway. I'm sure it's all operates the same way. And this corn, when it comes in, is heavily coated with a red dust. And when we dump it into the tanks and mix it with the water, we add lime to it. We add a lot of lime to it, which also is not on the list of ingredients because that's in the cooking process. I'm going to tell you what that is in a minute, Zane, because he's curious. Yeah, it's thickly coated in a red dust. Like, it's hard to describe how thick it is. I mean, the corn almost, it doesn't look yellow because there's so much of this red dust on it and this powder that you're also not supposed to touch or handle. That red dust, well, anyway, when you put the corn in to the tanks, it boils off that dust, and then it loosens up all of the corn husk that's still on there. You wish it was Cheeto dust, so that it can be soft enough to be milled, and then you rinse it off to get the lime off afterwards. But you know, that lime, there's still some of that lime in the corn. They just don't tell. It's like I said, it's not going to be on the ingredients unless it's a lime flavor. Then they'll leave it on. The red dust is rat poison. It's a poison that they spread onto the corn so that rats and mice won't get into it while it's waiting to be loaded into the train tankers to be transported. And it's very dangerous. There's people at the Frito-Lay plant, the people that work, because the train comes into the plant. There's a train yard inside, and it pulls in, and then they empty one car at a time. And there's employees there that have actually been burned by the stuff. It's very volatile to the touch. So if they handle the corn by accident, then they would get burns on their hands. And yeah, all they do is this tank, it boils it, you rinse it off a few times, and you know, it doesn't boil like right away. They boil those tanks sometimes for a full day. It depending upon what they're grinding or what the chips are for. And I'll tell you about that one here in a second too. There's another big okey doke in the industry. I'm going to get myself in trouble. I'm sure I probably signed a non-disclosure agreement at some point, but usually they boil 18, 20, 22 hours. They don't want to boil it for too long because it'll be too mushy and you can't get good maza out of it. You can't get good corn dough when you run it through the sheeting process. And then when you try to cook it, it doesn't cook right, and then it'll stick on the inside of the oven, and then you got a huge mess. And the oven is massive, and it's got conveyors that go like in 3 different directions. The rollers, and they call it a cookie cutter. There's a hard roller and a cutter for the shapes of the chips. Yeah, whistleblower, that's me, Paperclip. I guess so. Well, people should know this, honestly. They should know about this kind of stuff because you're eating it. It runs off the shapes onto a conveyor belt. That conveyor belt goes through an oven. It goes out, drops down onto a second belt in the middle, and drops down to a third belt on the bottom. And that belt, there's a blower, and they fly off onto this slide. And then that slide goes down to a tumbler that puts the seasoning on it, or salt, or lime, or whatever it's going to be flavored with. But when they want something, you ever eat anything and it says high in fiber? Do you know what fiber is? Do you think, Chris says, do you think America is going to force 15-minute cities and ban driving? They're trying to do it in the UK, 15-minute cities. I don't know if they can get away with it because too many people drive. Yeah, Mr. Rogers should have taken me to the corn chip plant. Yeah, no kidding. Well, I'm Mr. Rogers today. I'm taking you to the corn chip plant. When you see a product and it's labeled high in fiber, fiber is basically undigestible plant matter. So when you're eating chips that says high in fiber, or you're eating cereal that's primarily corn-based, yeah, carbohydrates you can't digest, Cruising says. When you're eating cereal that is a corn-based cereal, like let's say it's cornflakes, high in fiber, this is how that works. Now, I just told you that when you boil the corn, 18, 20, 22 hours, you don't want to boil it too long. But part of that boiling process, it's a two-step process. One is to get the poison off, and two is to remove all the corn husk. Okay? But if you only boil it, say, 10 or 12 hours, the husk stays on. Then you open up your grinder just a hair more because you don't need too much on that grinder. You got to be real careful with the setting, and you manually set that, and there's an art to it. Trust me. You're basically grinding up the corn husk with the corn because it didn't wash out. Now you've got high fiber. You like that one? I thought you would. Yeah, Chris, that's right. Videos in the UK putting up pillars blocking roads in neighborhoods. Yeah, in the UK, that government is a lot more totalitarian than the US is. The US wishes it was that totalitarian. You have like zero rights in the UK. I don't care what they tell you. So they've been trying that out there, and they're making it hard on people. But yeah, that's how you get extra fiber, high fiber on your breakfast bars or your chips. Now with high fiber, extra fiber, 10 grams of fiber. That's how they're doing it. They're not boiling the product long enough before they make the dough that they use to process it, regardless of what it is. Regardless of what it is that you're eating in regards to processed food. They just didn't husk it. They didn't boil off the husks properly. And that's how you get your high fiber. The other thing that I had mentioned was the olein, and that ties in with the idea of the fact that you don't have to disclose everything on a label in every state. Not all states are created equal. So the olein product that was used in Frito-Lay and their chips, it was supposed to be diet chips with olein, the wow products, right? I think they called it the wow products. Chris says they're scanning everyone's faces everywhere to do social credit score here in America, like China. Yeah, no kidding. I don't like all that. I don't like all of that scanning everybody's face either. It's a load of crap. And the only way that a social credit score is going to work is if everybody, excuse me, dips off into a cryptocurrency. That has to happen first, because you can more easily control people's money that way. But hey, buddy, there's Daniel. How you doing? Sneaking up on me there. with the Olean product, and this is I brought this up again on the video on Penny University. I think it was the very last one that we did. And that machine was huge. That processing machine. It was this a synthetic cooking oil. So instead of traditional vegetable oil or whatever they boil, because we went through a ton of oil, you know, of our fryer had hundreds of gallons in it. So this fryer, it was a mechanical process of spraying. It didn't run through like a traditional fryer does. Our fryer was a conveyor belt submerged in oil that the chips were on, so that it could keep flowing, and it would be on the conveyor just long enough to fry the chips and get to the next stage, for which was basically seasoning, because fresh out of the fryer with oil on it is the easiest way to season it. And there's Lee Mack. Hello, longtime listener, Orlando, Florida, checking in. Oh, thanks for joining us this afternoon. The more the merrier. This machine was I don't even know if I can explain how this damn thing worked, because the Olean was food grade petroleum jelly. So Vaseline essentially is what they were frying the chips in for the WOW products. So they just called it Olean instead of petroleum jelly. And there was 2 bags for each product. The bag for the states where a warning label was required, and the bags for the states where it was not. And the warning label said, warning may cause ALS. So, which they really don't tell you what that is. You'd have to go and look it up yourself. ALS is anal leakage syndrome, because you're basically eating an undigestible oil. That's how you're saving your calories. And not everybody's body can handle that. It'll run right through you, and it could leak out of your body uncontrollably. And there's Cowboy. Hello, all. Greetings from Chicago. I can't say the whole thing, Cowboy. I'll get in trouble. I've actually gotten tagged on this channel before. So they hate me. I say certain things, and I get in all kinds of trouble. But anyway, that's how Olean worked. Not a popular product, as you can imagine. It made a lot of people sick to their stomach. But again, the point being that not all states are created equal when it comes to warning labels or disclosures on the products, which brings you back to, yeah, no kidding, Paperclip. You think the vegetable oil is bad, or corn oil, or I forget what they used. They used whatever was the cheapest, I'm sure. Yeah, glorified king of side effects. No kidding, cruising. And that's amazing. And I'm glad I didn't run that machine, because usually I would have faked it anyways. But in each department, every hour, the person who's operating the sheeting process, which would have been me, would have to go up front on the other side of the wall, because we're divided from the bagging and packaging stations, because it's hot where I was. The kitchen is hot up by the tanks. If you have to patrol the tanks, it's like 120 up there. But we'd have to get a bag and peel the bag open for quality control. And one of those requirements was that you had to taste it. And I would not have tasted that product by any means. So I didn't operate WOW. It was just stationed next to one of my stations. They didn't make the WOW too often, actually. They didn't make the Olean stuff too often. But that's pretty disgusting. So no, not all states are required to reveal what's in your consumer good, what's in your food, what's on the warning label. Was this at Doritos Tostitos? Yeah, I worked in the corn division. So there's corn, and then there's potatoes, and then there's extruding. There's 3. So potatoes, of course, is your Lay's and stuff like that. Lay's, Ruffles, whatever. And then extruding is your Funyuns and your Cheetos and stuff like that, which thank God I didn't have to work in extruding. Good Lord, what a nightmare that department is. And I did corn, which is Doritos, Santitos, Scoops, stuff like that. Anything that's a technical corn chip. But yeah, Doritos Tostitos, I ran all of those lines. Extruding is that stuff's all powder. It's a powder and it runs through this machine that adds moisture to it and heats it up, superheats it, and blows it through a mold. It's like like if you ever had one of those old school Play-Doh sets and you had like these little shapes you would put through and you squeeze it and it would come out of shape. That's what an extruder is. But that thing would run wild because it was as it's going through and it's super cooled and there's a blower on it and there's a slicer that spins really fast and the Funyuns just fly off, but it would pop the end out all the time, and then you just have like this long, like a snake, like stream of a fat Cheeto like this or a fat Funyun, and it couldn't be stopped, and they can't shut the machine off, and it's hot. It's really hot in that area. It's worse than the section I worked in. And so you got people banging on the machine and turning things and trying to get the slicer reset. And meanwhile, there's this constant like snake coming out of the thing. And they'd have to get a crew of people to come and start smashing it up and putting it into these big bins, these plastic Gaylords to wheel it out to the dumpster. Chris says, I think buying food from direct trusted farmers, homegrown, is the only way to get real food. Now, yeah, I agree. And if you, I know it's not easy for everybody. Not everyone has that opportunity or has the money for it, or, but yeah, farmers market, homegrown as much as possible. I hesitate to think of how some of these other plants are making this stuff when you're talking those kind of high volumes, when, I'm running a machine that's pumping out like 10, 15,000 cases of chips during my shift, 24 hours a day, maybe broken down once for a changeover because the same station can be used to make different products. You can make Tostitos one day and then Santitos the next day. It's whatever the order is for to be shipped around the country. And then when you break it down, that's when the maintenance crew comes in and sterilizes everything to set up for the next shift. Especially if you don't have to do it so much if it's straight corn chips, but with Doritos, for example, they have all those different flavors. Then they have to sanitize everything, and they have a crew that does that, and they use some really harsh chemicals on that too. They wear full suits, sometimes with oxygen, to sanitize all of that stuff because they're worried about allergens. They're worried about allergens. Really, they just don't want complaints. And weird stuff gets mixed up in there sometimes. People think they can sue. And they can't. You can't sue if because you bought the product. It's not the way it works. Yeah, it is, Zane. It's a lot to take in. I agree. It is a lot to take in, and like I said, it's probably one of the cleaner operations. Potatoes too. I never worked in potatoes either, making lays and stuff like that. And that's a weird one too. If you've ever seen how they load that, the potatoes don't come on the train. The potatoes come in a truck, and the truck parks on a. Let me see if I can demonstrate here. It's got a block. This is the truck, right? And it pulls in, and it stops. It backs up onto this platform, but the platform is an elevator, and it doesn't go up and down. It goes at an angle. So they open the back door after it's set, and then the elevator lifts like this, lifts the whole truck up to like what is that, 45 degrees, and basically all the potatoes pour out. And then yeah, saying you don't want to know. Hey, JK is here. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, this evening. And the potatoes, there's a lot of foreign stuff in there because it's machinery that scoops it up out of the ground and loads it into the trucks. So everything that was in the ground with it goes in the truck with those potatoes. And so it goes through a filtering process in the plant. It basically, when it gets cleaned off, and they're GMO potatoes, they've been modified to have super thin skins on them so they don't actually have to be peeled. They you can rub it off. You can rub it off with your thumb. The skins are so thin. The ones that are, because Frito-Lay owns its own farms for that purpose. So it goes through these brushes. It looks like the big brushes that you have in like a car wash, and it runs through these brushes, and the brushes just basically scratch all of the skin off, and disperses with anything else that's in there that shouldn't be, like mice, turtles, a dog once. There was a dead dog in there. No kidding. Just anything that's not supposed to be in there gets brushed off, and then it goes to the slicing and boiling process, and then or is it the boiling and slicing? I don't remember, because like I said, I didn't work in that division. You still feel like having some Lay's, anybody? Have I ruined it for you? You're better off, actually, if you want some good chips that the process is a little cleaner than that. Kettle Chips or Cape Cod potato chips. Yeah, Zane, thanks. No, but there was a dog. It only happened once, but there was a dog. I don't know what kind either. They just told me. They told me about it. Yeah, paperclip. But there are, brother, like, I know that the process, I've seen how Cape Cod does theirs, and it's very different and very hands-on, as opposed to mass industrialization, at least the last time I saw it being done. But Cape Cod's a much smaller operation, and so is Kettle Chips, which I like better anyways, because I think the texture is better. I don't care for the texture of Lay's. It's too thin. Cruising hasn't had chips in decades. Oh, Braces left a gap. Really? Oh, that's unfortunate. Let's see, oh, here you go, Cruising. There's Daniel knocked out. So I knew you wanted to see Daniel, didn't you? Uncle's in here too, but you can't see him. He's sleeping on the floor. Everybody saw Uncle when I started. But that's basically how a lot of that stuff is operated. And things fall into it, foreign objects. People have lost jewelry in there. They've lost hair extensions. We've gotten consumer complaints about somebody's braid fried up in a bag of chips. False eyelashes, things that you're not supposed to have at Frito-Lay. And, we're supposed to wear nets and everything. And people get something like that. Like if you got somebody's fried hair extensions in your chips, you're going to call Frito-Lay and bitch. But you're not going to get any further than that. Basically, they'll send you coupons for free product, but you're not going to. It's not like you're going to sue. Everybody thinks they can sue somebody in this country. You can't. You can try, but you're not going to get anywhere. That's basically how that works. So now that I've ruined everybody's appetite for half an hour, that's basically what we were talking about. But of course, that was following up on a couple of things that I did recently on the Prepper University channel. Yeah, fried bugs is the next thing. You gotta get fried grasshoppers. Jalapeno fried grasshoppers. Yeah, that's right, Paperclip. If you stop eating them, you just stop wanting them after about a month. Yeah, and that's true for anything. If you get away from it long enough, the benefit of cold turkey. CT says, did you ever make a prepping video on how to grow your own potatoes? No, I did not. It's not that hard, actually, because they'll grow anywhere. it just as long as the crop's not going to be interfered with, but you can pretty much grow potatoes anywhere. But I haven't done anything like that. But we do have some potatoes back there. Some potatoes and some limes and some lemons and pears and apples and blackberries and blueberries and some other things. Although my one of my lime trees isn't doing very well. The constant heat and cold hurt it. Yeah, Zane says fry bugs. Aztecs served bugs in place of meat. Yeah, that's because they couldn't get any. And remember, it's only kosher if it has 6 legs. But no, I'm not down for the whole fried bug thing. But of course, the elites want you all to eat bugs. The super rich, the wealthy celebrities, and ultra rich people. George Soros wants you to eat bugs. Those are the guys that want you eating bugs, fried bugs. But they won't. Oh, you can bet they won't. They're not going to eat like that. They can afford to eat better, and they do. They want you eating bugs, and they want you riding bicycles everywhere. And that's how it goes. But yeah, anyway, that was just following up, of course, on the couple of videos that we did on the Prepper University talking about that. Oh, we started our vegetable planting because Survival Foods sent us a gift pack of seeds to experiment with. Yeah, Bill Gates, Soros, Klaus Schwab want to exterminate us. Yeah, I don't doubt it. And it's bingo. And we made flour for Frito tasty what cake and a huge government contract called Interbake. Okay. Interbake, huh? Well, you make bug flour, cockroach flour. I wouldn't eat roaches. I just, in particular, I wouldn't eat roaches. Every time I've seen cats eat them before. They always throw them up. So something wrong there. If they can't eat it, I'm not eating it either. The other big thing, and I've got one more video coming on the subject. I think just one more was the whole bit with Bud Light, which I don't drink anyways. I don't drink beer. I don't drink wine or liquor of any kind. Neither my wife nor I drink. But it's become a big hot button issue with using Dylan Mulvaney and advertising for Bud Light, which he's a fraud. And I called him out as such in the video. He'll never see it, so it doesn't matter anyway. But nothing I wouldn't say in person that I didn't say there. And the thing is, this is a person who, as you got a guy pretending to be a man. I mean, you got a guy pretending to be a woman, pretending to drink a liquid that's pretending to be beer. Because he didn't really drink a beer. If you're paying close attention to that ad, you can hear that can crinkling, and you know what an aluminum can sounds like when it's empty. There's nothing in that can. And he is not Audrey Hepburn. I don't care how much he tries to dress like her. I think people don't remember that Dylan Mulvaney was an actor. He was a professional actor. He's been on TV shows. He's done professional acting. He has a resume with a very poor career, not very active. And if you watch him in the beginning of his whole, like, I'm a girl now, it looks like a parody. It looks like he's making fun of trans people in his ads. And so I don't believe for a minute that he actually thinks he's a girl or any of it. I think that he was doing a parody and it jumped off. And so he's just running with it because what's he going to do now? Sit there and say, hey, it was all a joke? And as long as he's going to be making money off it, the more attention that's drawn to it, the more money he's going to make. He has 11 million followers now on, what is he, TikTok? I can't remember because I don't watch TikTok, so I don't know. because people like a freak show. Human beings like that. They get attracted to that sort of thing. That's what they look for. That's why and I brought this up in the video, that's why sideshows always were good business. Yeah, he's faking Helter. I absolutely believe it. And a lot of people say the Bud Light tastes bad. I have no idea. Like I said, I don't drink anyway, but I've heard that it's not very good anyways. You know, industrial beer. Of course, hey, it's another huge factory. You got to wonder what goes on there. But I think he's putting on an act. He's in too deep. He can't pull out now. He may as well ride it, because this is probably the most he's ever going to make in his life. He'll probably never have a career after this anyway. And again, people like a freak show. I have mentioned it in the thing. If you ever I've watched some documentaries on carnivals years ago. Those sideshows where they got the guy with 7 arms or whatever, lady with 2 heads, world's fattest woman, whatever, Siamese twins. The freak show made more money often than the entire rest of the carnival combined, because people like to see that, and they still do. Only now it's on the internet. Now you turn on your YouTube or your TikTok or Twitter or whatever, and you watch the freak show. JK says, I left my opinion on one of your videos. Okay. But I don't know if I saw it or not. There's a lot there. Actually, most of the feed is flooded with comments about that Walmart short that I got in trouble for, that YouTube let run anyway. That has like 150,000 views now. But yeah, I got a strike for that. I did get a strike for that. I got in trouble, but they still ran it, and people are still watching it. And there's so many comments on that, and it's the same comments over and over again. That's why I steal from Walmart, and that's why you need to shoplift from Walmart, and I don't know, whatever garbage. Don't shop there if you don't like it. It's the same comments again and again and again. I did a video on it, just highlighting some of those comments. So I've been missing a lot of the comments in the feed, because I usually try to at least acknowledge them, unless it's something rude, and then I ignore it. Yeah, Zane, shoplifters are a pain in the butt, and they cause a drastic increase in the prices in a lot of the products as well, plus the security that goes into it, because they have all this heightened security equipment, people who work in Department 100, D100, and things like that. It costs a lot. Yeah, Chris, they're closing a lot of Walmarts in areas where there's a revolving door process for the law. Walmart's essentially closing, and Trader Joe's too. A lot of stores are pulling out in areas where they're not being allowed to even stop shoplifters, let alone prosecute them. So they're like, if we can't defend our store, we don't need to be here. And I don't blame them for that, actually. I don't blame them for that, actually. Yeah, and I've seen that too, Chris. A lot of in certain areas of Walmarts, it's all, everything is behind glass. Hello, Miss Kitty. What are you doing? I have another visitor. But that's that was basically my brick and mortar stores are going extinct. Well, it's easier to shop online. They've made it a lot easier to do things online. It's cheaper online. Barnes and Noble is a good example of that. If you go into Barnes and Noble and you look at a lot of the stuff they have on the shelves there, you can often find it cheaper at Barnes and Noble online, and that includes the shipping. So they're shooting themselves in the foot by making it cheaper at the Barnes and Noble online than it is in the store. And I hate that. I like books. I like bookstores too. Yeah, Chris, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, New York. Yeah, and that's a revolving door process where they're just allowing people to come and go and just take whatever they want. And like I said, it's bad enough they can't prosecute them, but they're not even allowing the stores to stop them. You could at least stop them and take your product back, but they're not letting them do it. And, that emboldens people in other states where that's not allowed. Like, you're not getting away with that in Georgia. They'll grab you. It was actually a few months ago, I saw a woman that they grabbed at a Walmart near where I am because of her shoes. She changed her shoes in their shoe department and tried to walk out. And they went out there and grabbed her. They pulled her back into the store and took her into the security office. But that emboldens people in a lot of places. Like, yeah, you can just go and steal whatever you want. Nope, it depends on where you are. And it's amazing that these companies are basically setting themselves up for, or these governments, rather, these city and county and local governments are setting themselves up for disaster. They're all going to end up abandoned. All those businesses pull out. You've got most of your tax revenue is going to go with it. And then the people are going to leave. And then you got Detroit on your hands. And what's Detroit without RoboCop? So what are you going to do? JK says there's a bad shoplifting problem in the UK now. Really? That I don't know about. But it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, the UK has gotten really backwards. It's a shame. And it's nothing. I'm not attacking the people. It's the way things are being run. It's the way that the government handles things. It's unfortunate. What's wrong? But anyway, now we got this whole big boycott going on. Sorry, the cat's like under my chair. The whole big boycott going on now with Bud Light. And it's not enough to just boycott Bud Light. You have to boycott all of Anheuser-Busch's products to really drive it home, because frankly, they don't care. A perceived loss of $4 billion is not that big of a deal to a company that large, which that particular division was worth $132 billion, and then they capped at 128. And so that's negligible. That's an acceptable loss when you're dealing with numbers that big. To you and me, $1 billion is like, oh my God. But to them, it's like, yeah, we can recover from that. It'll be all right. They don't really care. Chris says UK people have no free speech and are prioritizing immigrants. Yeah, Italy and Greece have been getting hit hard for a few years, but Italy is in like a major crisis right now because of the immigrants. And yeah, that's true, unfortunately. And they don't have free speech. You can't even think. You recall I did that video not too long ago about that woman who was arrested for praying silently. No one heard her voice. She was arrested for praying. She was violating the rights of the abortion clinic that she was down the street from. Yeah, true, Zane. Lost to free speech when they surrendered their guns. And then so did Australia. So Australia is, God, it's like Orwell's nightmare now. And Shakali, am I pronouncing that right? Shashakila says they're late. Yes, you're very late, and that's 2 demerits. That's 2 demerits for you. You'll have to sit in the corner. I'm surrounded by cats. I was hoping that Legends would show up today so I could thank him for sending that gift for the cats. Because I do get things to the P.O. box for the strays that we take care of from time to time. And so food, usually people like us use Amazon to send food to us, hard and soft food, and they send we've gotten like a couple of outdoor shelters, and we've gotten like a cat condo and things like that, and it's much appreciated. It really is. JK said he was a kid when the Bang Bangs went. Yeah, really. And it wasn't that much. How long after that did the punk revolution start? A lot of people don't realize, especially in the United States, that was a cultural outcry. It was a backlash more so than just like a style. Yeah, -2 on the social credit score. Yeah, no bread for you this week. No bread for you. They have a long history, Zane, of treating their Aboriginal population very poorly. They were torturing them all the way up until the 1970s, weren't they? There's a really bad history in New Zealand with all of that. Yeah, real life 84 totalitarianism in full display. Except that the poverty isn't quite as bad as depicted in 1984. If you've read the book or saw the movie is actually pretty close to the book. It was rather well done. I recommend watching that if you have not read the book. And then now we're flooded with advertisements I'm seeing ads constantly from Australia. G'day, mate. Trying to get people to come down and visit Australia. I will never go to Australia. I've been to Australia. I was in Australia in the 80s. And it is not like how I remember it. Not by a long shot. But I would never go there again, the way that the government treats their people now, the way they oppress them and brainwash them and threaten them. It's quite sickening, actually. But anyway, back to the point with Mulvaney. That was $4 billion is not that critical to a company that large, which is part of another conglomerate. They can suck it up. So people will have to, for a long time coming now, continue to not purchase their products until it really hurts them. Remember, even back in the 60s during the bus boycotts with Martin Luther King, it took them 2 years to break the transit authority. It was, if I remember correctly, was that 2 years? That until the transit authority was like, okay, you win, sit wherever the hell you want. We can't afford to keep running anymore. You're going to bankrupt the operation. If they could hold out for 2 years, then how long do you think Anheuser-Busch will hold out? Until the public forgets or doesn't care anymore, essentially. Just like with Nike, something that'll come up in the next video. People protested Nike and NFL because they were pissed off about Kaepernick and some other stuff. And they burned their stuff. Oh, I'm never buying Nike again. I'm never buying NFL merchandise again. I'm going to burn my shirts. And like they care. You'll come back. You'll have to buy it all again. And so what do they care? No, they don't know how to boycott anymore. There's an art to it. There's an art to protesting and boycotting. People don't know what it is. They think a clever comment on Twitter is a protest, and it is not. JK says they get a lot of Visit California ads. You do not want to go to California. We get them too. I get tons of ads for coming to California, Virginia, and Australia. Those three all the time advertised on the services, because we don't have cable. But when we watch the TV, those are the three ads that we see all the time for visiting. I am not going to San Francisco. Okay, I'm not going to Los Angeles. That is not going to happen. I am not going to Australia, and I don't know if I want to go to Virginia. Hell. But no, people don't know how to protest anymore. They don't know what it takes. Go watch Gandhi, and then you'll figure out how to protest. People aren't willing to go that far. They're not willing to invest that heavily in it. Keep in mind, we've seen a protest recently that was working, and it got shut down as soon as they were hit in the pocket. And that, of course, was the truck drivers' protest that was taking place in Canada. That was working. It was effective. And as soon as, because everybody is online now, everything is computerized, as soon as they got in everybody's bank account, suddenly it was over. Oh, let's leave. Oh, and I had to hear it from everybody. You don't know what you're talking about, because I said it then. I was like, if they leave now, it's over, and they'll never do it again. Oh, they're just regrouping, and oh, they're going to come. No, they didn't come back. They're not regrouping. They gave up because they got hurt in the pocket. And they were that close. They were that close to breaking it down because Canada's a disaster too, and they treat their people terrible. JK, oh, is it that bad in London now? Londonistan, isn't that what they call it down there? Chris said 2020 George Floyd riots. Oh, why they left the city. Okay. Not going to have my house burned down by looters. I don't blame you. And look at who they're rioting over. I'm sure most of you know the true story of the whole bit with Floyd and the things that he did and what actually went on. Now, and they build monuments to the man. It's amazing that they'll put someone like that on a pedestal. He doesn't deserve it. I'm sorry. Did I offend someone? That's okay. That's how I feel about it. He doesn't deserve it. And there's people who do, and you'll never see or hear them. You'll hear about the Greta Thunbergs of the world. You know, you'll hear about the, what's his name, Hogg. You hear about him. Oh, he's a hero. Greta Thunberg is a hero. You stole my childhood. No, Greta, you sold it. You sold it. That's your fault. Wes says, when drinkers realize how many brands are Anheuser-Busch, they will just stop boycotting anyways. Yeah, Anheuser-Busch, and that's a great point, has been running around for almost a decade or so, right? Am I right here, Wes? You might know better than me. And buying up a lot of these IPs, buying up these independent breweries and taking them over, which often happens. It's like, and Tom's of Maine is a good example. You've heard of Tom's of Maine. They make toothpaste and deodorant and stuff like that, and it's supposed to be natural, and it was not recommended. Like if you had Tom's of Maine toothpaste, it was not dentist recommended until Crest bought it. They didn't change the formula, but Crest bought it, and then suddenly it was recommended. But that's what happens to a lot of these independent operations. They sell out. It's the same as like, because people are always telling me, oh, you need to mirror here and there. And I do mirror this channel. I mirror Coffee Talk to Rumble. No one watches it there, but I mirror it to Rumble. And everybody's like, oh, you need to go on this channel. You need to go on that channel. Free speech channel. None of them are, by the way, because they'll all ban you or give you strikes. And if any of them does get big enough, Google will buy them out and close them down, which has happened. There's been major competitors who have come real close with YouTube. Google comes along, throws out a number, they sell out, Google just shuts down their platform. And I believe that's happened 3 times. Yes, Shashakile. Bush? Oh, I'm not sure. Somebody know that? Can someone answer that question? Is Bush also Budweiser? Where are we here? Yeah, Wes says many top shelf beers now have Budweiser in the fine print. And that's what I mean. That's what happens. These larger companies, or like, was it Naked? The drink was bought out. They were bought out by somebody. I think Bolt House was bought out. Anytime any of these companies start moving, start doing good, especially if it's a food or beverage. Oh, Shasha says yes. Okay, I wasn't sure because, like I said, I don't drink. But I do know they've been buying up these smaller breweries. I would rather see a smaller brewery or any small operation that manufactures food or beverages stay small instead of letting themselves get bought out into an umbrella, because that's a damn shame. And then that's how we end up now with, if you go through your supermarket, probably close to 90% of what's sold in there is manufactured by like 7 or 8 companies that have like these massive food umbrellas of companies that are all part of the same operation. And Chris and Zane are talking about Russian oil and Chinese billionaires. um, Chinese billionaires, not too long ago, they were running to actually, it was when Hong Kong was annexed, when the British Empire relinquished Hong Kong back to China. A lot of extremely wealthy Chinese left and moved to Canada. So we might be seeing that happening again. CT says the same thing happened to Ben & Jerry's. And it's a shame, because I like seeing all those smaller operations. And you don't need to make hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. Are you making enough to run your operation and live comfortably? Isn't that good enough? Unfortunately, the answer is no for most people. Most people are very greedy. Miss Kitty. Kitty. You ignoring me? She's ignoring me. Come here, Kitty. Come here, Kitty. Got to take care of the kitties. Come here. Good girl. So, there she is. Poor Miss Kitty. How you doing, dear? That's the one that's she's a bit of a temperamental cat. She's a very temperamental cat because she was badly abused. But I've got her now, and I let her go ahead and be temperamental because I understand. Actually, I think you can see if I get the angle right here. Do you see how her leg is? See how one leg is twisted? That's how badly it was broken. It never healed correctly. It's okay, dear. She's got a lot of scars on her back, too. It looks like she was whipped. Yeah, Shashika. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. Shashakila. Bluebell ice cream still made in Texas in a private company. Okay, good. I hope they stay that way. And Armored Ghost said, what cat food costs compared to 1 year ago? And it has gone up. I've seen it go up several times, cat and dog food, both. And I talked about it in one of the videos because the cans of the large size cans, it was like 92 cents all in the course of a year. 92 cents, 98 cents, $1.22, $1.28, and there's a couple of other transitions, but now it's like 172 at the Walmart. It went through like 6 or 7 transitions. Shasha Kila, right? Okay, I got it right. Good. Yeah, that's poor Miss Kitty. She's terrified of being picked up. If you raise your hand up too quickly, she winces. But she was treated very badly wherever she was. I don't know what happened to her. So I don't try to pick her up. I just let her be. She usually just likes to hang out. Here, give her one of her cat treats here. There you go, dear. But you can't see it, but she has all these crisscrossing marks on her back. And then, of course, you can see how her leg is twisted up, though. That's why she doesn't climb on things, because it's hard for her to jump back down. It hurts. Poor dear. Yeah, everything's going up, Zane. Everything is going up. But yeah, there has been a sharp increase in cat and dog food. Wet food or moist food is harder to find. It's often missing from the shelves unless it's the real high-end stuff. And that's the stuff we need more often than the dry food, because outdoor cats, we get strays we're working on that are in our backyard that it's better for them if they're living outside to have soft food. So that's been tough on us. But yeah, we've seen things going up across the board, especially like meat, poultry, eggs. Especially eggs took a big jump just recently in the last few months. And it's partially due to the culling of the herds. I talked about that in another video, or the flocks, I should say. A lot of the big industrial farms were forced to cull their flocks because of bird flu. If that's even true, just because the FDA said they had bird flu, I don't know if that's true or not. I can't trust that. And then it may not have killed them. And then also they can't develop a natural immunity, and it won't translate to their meat or eggs. So you could still eat it. They could have done something with it instead of poisoning them and burying them a lot, or burying their bodies afterwards. It's a total waste. And it drove the prices up on that. And I think it was done deliberately. And then people were making the argument that the eggs from organic farms were getting to be the same price or even cheaper. You know, those have always been the expensive ones. And it's like, well, now regular eggs cost almost as much. I may as well buy the organic ones. Well, the organic farms weren't forced to cull their herds or flocks. I keep saying herds. Zane says bird flu is very real, getting out of hand. It's killed sea lions. Has it? I haven't heard that. Wes says 20 craft beers and 15 mainline beer brands like Michelob. Okay. I mean, the real problem with the Bud Light, yeah, I talked about it already. Oh, there's Doc Galt. What's going on? Not much. Just having a conversation with some of the people that have joined us here. The real problem, as I understand it, is just poor quality beer, which doesn't surprise me because of how it's manufactured. You get some tap water, some hops. Let's just throw it together. Just throw it together. There's no crafting. Maybe if they worked on their flavor. And as I understand it, the brand wasn't doing that bad anyways, by comparison. But with all those IPs making much better beer, apparently, why would you bother? You may as well pay an extra dollar or two for something that tastes right instead of buying that carbonated tap water. Why not? Which is also why they've been buying up a lot of those IPs. Wes says we're all going to be hungry later this year. The government has farmer plowing under wheat here. Nothing wrong with it. What state are you in, Wes, if you don't mind? Which that's pretty common. One of my biggest pet peeves is how much food is destroyed and disposed of globally, not just in the United States, but all over the world. They dispose of millions of tons of food. Texas, okay. But, you know, obviously that increases the price of food. It makes less food available. Everybody complains about hunger and all this other stuff, but you're throwing away from farm to supermarket and restaurants, nearly 60% of the food, and that includes meat, poultry, and fruits and vegetables, is disposed of yearly globally. And it could be handled better. It could be handled much better. Usually it's done because of market share. And I advise you to stock up now. Wes, everybody who may be listening or may be interested, I advise you to stock up whatever you can while you can. Everybody, in my opinion, everyone should have a pantry with emergency food. They estimate. What are you doing? Where did you come from? Sorry, I just realized there's a cat laying on my foot. The government estimates that the average person, or FEMA estimates the average person has about a 3-day supply of food in their home. That's insane. You should have minimum, in my opinion, 3 months, and work on it from there. It's not hoarding if you're planning for the future and if you're rotating that stock of food so that you always have fresh food. I think everybody should do that. Everybody should be prepared for that. You should have emergency fresh water put up. Remember that water also needs to be rotated, because if it's in plastic containers, that container can break down over time. So you should also have a way to filter water. But absolutely work on your pantries. Uh, Beans, rice, pasta, stuff that is easily stored for very long periods of time. Armored Ghost says Texas is becoming California 2.0. It's unfortunate. You know what the thing is, though, is as people flee those states, very often they bring a lot of their bad habits with them. CT says, I used to drink an IP beer that was 2 towns over from Flint, Michigan. Once I found out where the beer was manufactured, I stopped drinking it for fear they were using same water as Flint. Yeah, well, you could find out. You might could find out where they're getting their water from. Wes says, I have a picture on my phone of the Dimmitt Dairy fire. Let me see. I'm just catching up some of the comments. And of course, the monitor's over here. That's why I keep looking to the side. Yeah, Chris says buying long-term food 2 years ago saved me thousands when hyperinflation hit. Yeah, and that's jumped off a lot too, especially if you're buying like MREs type foods or freeze-dried stuff, which a lot of that's not good for you. You do have to be careful. You do have to be careful. But yeah, like I said, pasta, rice, beans, lentils, they don't cost a lot. They can be stored for a very long time. You know, things like that are good to consider. Wes has been prepping for a day or two, supposed to be an expert. At least you started. Doc says, I agree completely. The prices just keep rising, so you might as well buy it now. Yeah. Chris says that the California exodus is real. And Shasha Keela says, yes, it is. But since pot isn't legal in Texas, some from California are leaving. It doesn't stop them. It isn't. It doesn't stop them because it's not legal in Georgia. And everywhere I go, I smell weed. Everywhere I go, I swear I smell it. I smell it when I pass people's cars that are parked. I smell it in the post office. I go in the post office to check the P.O. box, and I smell weed in the post office. Everywhere you go, you smell that now. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but I smell it everywhere. I swear. When I go in the if I go in the supermarket, if I have to go to the mall for some reason, God forbid, I swear I smell weed. West says Austin and Dallas, West Texas ain't playing that. You know why Dallas is having that problem? Because J.R. Ewing isn't there anymore. Because he wouldn't have had that in his town. Armored Ghost wants to know if East Palatine is still a poisonous zone. That's one of those things they're not talking about anymore. Since everybody's all caught up in the whole Bud Light thing, they're no longer talking about East Palatine. But I'm sure it's still toxic. I wouldn't trust it. And Armored says that Arizona used to be solid red. Now it's turning blue from purple. Yeah, and you're seeing that in Georgia too. I mean, you see who was elected on our last 2 state senators are both very liberal, blithering liberal, disgustingly so. You got Warnock. Warnock is a joke. That guy is ridiculous. I don't trust anything he says. He's supposed to be a minister. But that church that he's the minister of is a very political one. Anyone who has any political authority whatsoever, if they come to Georgia, they go to that church because you're not learning anything about the Bible and they believe it. What's this? Yeah, Cruising says they're sick of smelling weed secondhand. So you've been experiencing that too? That's like the new thing now. Chris says California's taxing weed so high, people are now that people have returned to the black market. Yeah, that's not me, Wes. I've never had that actually. I've never had that. Shashakila says seeing blue in Texas, but Texas was a blue state for 150 years until Reagan. Doc says if there's anything questionable that you need to buy stock off on it before July when Fed Now takes effect. Oh man. Yeah, it's a mess. I mean, we already really technically don't have any rights anyways. We have a lot of privileges, and they have been pushing harder and harder to systematically remove those privileges from us once and for all for the last few years. It's been getting really hard. It's been getting really hard. They don't want you to be able to do anything without government's permission or oversight or intervention or interference or a tax or a regulation of some kind. I mean, I know that governments basically farm people for money and resources, but do you have to make it so bad? Do you have to make it so freaking unbearable for everybody? And then they have everybody at each other's throats constantly, fighting over things that for a long time didn't really matter that much. We've seen a huge resurgence of racism in America. Perceived racism. Let me clarify that, because out in the streets, I don't see it so much. Remember, I'm in Georgia. It is the largest population of people in Georgia is Caucasian, but it also has some of the largest black populations. I don't see it walking around, but you'll see it in the media nonstop. They hammer it into us. And there are many people who buy into it and believe it and live that. And those people can be dangerous and hostile and cause problems. A lot of times people will cause problems because they think they're going to get something from it. They don't really even believe it themselves, but they'll go along. They'll go along if they think it'll benefit them somehow. And that's unfortunate. Again, that's just part of the human condition to just be nasty and stupid. Chris says, yeah, when I was in school, racism was never an issue, but ever since Obama 2008, there's growing hate for white people. Yeah, it's becoming more and more public. And the people who cry the loudest will be the ones that get heard. And there's a lot of people who don't believe in that, don't agree with it. But that, I know Mark Dice talks about that a lot. Mark Dice talks about it a lot, but it's been socially acceptable for a very long time to treat white people in that fashion and get away with it a lot longer than you might realize. Go watch an episode of The Jeffersons. This is a show from the 70s. And Jeffersons, of course, was a spin-off of All in the Family with Archie Bunker. And Archie Bunker was not the antagonist of the show. Michael was. Michael would set Archie off. Michael was the bad guy, believe it or not. If you watch it when you're a kid, you don't realize that. But when you watch it when you're older, you pick up on it better. Michael was the problem. Archie was just an old man set in his ways. And he said things he didn't really mean, or he commented on things he didn't really understand, but he didn't actually mean any harm. And you could call him on it. Now, jump over to the Jeffersons. I hate that show. He was mean and cruel, very racist. He said very crude things to people that were hurtful, especially if they were white or mixed. He was very cruel to them and completely unapologetic about it. And if you called him on it, he would get worse. But even in the 70s, it was socially acceptable to have that attitude. And it has ballooned to where we are now. Although it laid off for a while, but you're right. During the Obama administration, it came back. It's reared its ugly head again, and it's being showcased again, I should say. It's being showcased again that people that is socially acceptable. And then if you're white, you can't retaliate. You can't say anything about it. You'll get attacked. You'll be threatened. You'll be put down. You'll be canceled. But, that's a two-way street. It goes both ways. Wes says Archie was my role model for life. Oh, Archie Bunker or Archie Andrews. Which Archie? I know you mean Archie Bunker. I'm just messing around. Doc says there's a lot of perceptions about race, sex, etc. The media just fans the flames of the fire. Yeah, and they're gonna find the most negative stuff to talk about, and they're going to cast a light on that, and that's what the news does. But there's way too much gossip. There's way too much pandering and things like that going on in the media, in the press, because they don't really talk about the news anymore. And when they do, they got to tell you how to feel about it and what to think. They can't let you make up your own mind. JK wanted to know if I saw the Guidestones. I've never actually seen the Guidestones in person. No. I never saw them in person. Armored Ghost says liquor's inflated 25 to 50%. Has it? Oil prices seem steady for now. Well, it went down for a little while, and you kind of got okey-doked on that too, because a lot of states said, oh, we're going to stop collecting the tax to lower the gas prices. That's not exactly true. They eliminated one of the taxes, not all of them, because a lot of what you're paying on your fuel is tax. I used to work for Cumberland Farms gas station back in the 90s. Even then, they were getting pennies on the gallon. Cumberland Farms was not making a lot of money on the gas. Most of its money was coming from in-store sales. The gas itself, more than half of what you're seeing is taxes. All right, so they took away a tax, and then they increased other types of taxes, special tax and increases in sales tax. They made up for it. And that reduction of tax was only temporary. It was not permanent. So they lied about that. But yeah, it seems steady for now. We'll see where it goes. It's still more than it should be. Chris says, I constantly see comments about white people not seasoning their food. It's also interesting that white people are not allowed to promote white-owned businesses. Armin says, do you recall the 90s as a great decade or a downhill one? The pinnacle, I think we peaked in the 80s. And you still had part of that in the 90s. But as we got closer to 2000, it got to be less and less. So the 90s wasn't so bad, but as you got closer to 2000, it was less and less. And I'll quote Rob Van Winkle again. I know I've mentioned him before. Rob Van Winkle, of course, Vanilla Ice, said in an interview, I think it was about a year or two ago, that because he was concerned about young people having nothing. He was like, they've got nothing to look back on. They have nothing to be nostalgic about like we do. The last culturally significant thing to happen was the release of the iPod, and that was in 2003. What has happened since 2003 in the last 20 years now that's of any cultural significance that a young person growing up now can look back on with fond memories? Nothing. I mean, people our age are even nostalgic for the old commercials because modern commercials are just garbage. I mean, back then they were annoying because you're okay, can we get back to the show? But looking back on them now, they weren't so bad. and a lot of people are nostalgic for them. Modern commercials, all I see constantly, medications, constant medications, insurance commercials. I see one more Geico commercial. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. It's nonstop. Medications, and God forbid if there's an election, you'll get crushed by election commercials. Yeah, Wes says 90s were the decade that lulled us to sleep. Yeah, pretty much. And Chris says music has fallen. Yeah, music has died. We haven't had good music since the 90s either. I think that was the end of it. We don't, very, very infrequently is there anything decent that comes out of the music world now. Armored says today's nostalgia is Zanga and MySpace. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could just see. I saw a cartoon once. It was an old woman sitting next to a girl on like a bus. And it was a political cartoon. And she's holding a cell phone. And she was like, it says, our future. And it's supposed to be like 2065 or something. Would you like to see pictures of some of the dinners that I ate back in 2015? Because that's the thing now. People take pictures of their meals. I mean, are we that far gone? Wes says new country is all crap. It's not country. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. If it's not Kenny Rogers or Johnny Cash, I don't want to hear it. Doc says they did the same thing with gas in Indiana. They came out with a state stimulus check. It was because the state had excess in their budget. Now they raised the gas tax and they're getting it back. Yeah. Yeah. Wes says pop junk trash, unfeeling. No, and you can get a good sense of it. You can get a really good sense of that if you ever watched The Voice, because The Voice is a parade of singers that are better than the judges on the panel. And those judges handpick out the best of them and then manufacture them into everyone else. They crush that individuality. They crush it. And that individuality is what really makes a good singer. When you really get that feeling. Are you going to tell me Mick Jagger is a great singer? He can sing. He's not a great technical singer. But you recognize his voice. A lot of these modern people, you can't tell one from the other, but you recognize his voice. And he often has a lot of really deep emotion in it. You see what I mean? Or Steve Tyler. Steve Tyler's not a great technical singer either. But man, he can put a lot of emotion into his songs. And his voice is unique. When you hear it, you know it. And again, a lot of these modern ones, they sound the same. There's auto-tune all over it. The music is too loud, so you can barely make out what they're saying. They're mumbling. They all sound the same. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Armored Ghost says, I never understand why people began to photograph their food. Well, because the camera, we don't have cameras anymore. It's all on the cell phone. The cell phone took over your whole life. Everything you need's on there. A calendar, which, by the way, you see I still have a paper calendar. It's got a hole in it because the cat jumped up there and tore it. But I have an actual calendar. But anyways, it took over your calendar, your watch, your calculator, your recorder, it's got games on it, magnifying glass, flashlight, all that's on there, and the camera's on there. And now that you take digital pictures and you put them up on the computer, or you store them in your phone, or you put them in the cloud, the whole concept of photography is just out the window. It's not an art anymore. It's too dead common. It's much too dead common. And so people don't appreciate it. So, yeah, what else are you going to do with it? And just play with it. Just take pictures of my food. I'll take pictures of my food. I'll take pictures of my toilet. I'll take pictures of my foot. People take pictures of any stupid thing and they put it on Instagram. It's crazy. Yeah, Doc says you can recognize mixed lips too. Yeah. And Chris says hive mind. Oh, and Instagram has created a society of narcissists. So has TikTok. On the one insurance company I'll give him credit for, I don't even remember what it's for. The guy who always have it, he creates accidents. And there's this one commercial where he's pretending to be a little kid and he's trying to distract his mother from driving. Hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. Because trying to show things that are on the phone. And he's saying, you know, I don't feel alive if I'm not getting noticed on Instagram. He says something like that. I can't quote it exactly, but basically there's alluding to the concept that the modern young generation, if they're not constantly getting noticed in social media, they don't feel like they exist. They make a joke about it in that insurance commercial. Mayhem. Thank you, Chris. That's what it is. I can't remember. I just remember the concept. And that's very true. It's the most honest insurance commercial out there. They're making fun of it, but it's true. These kids are glued at the hip with these phones and with the social media, and they feel like everybody's got to pay attention to them and notice them. They don't appreciate what it is to be quiet, to have some private time, to have a hobby. Everybody thinks they're going to be the next social media star. And when they can't do it, they get depressed. They get put on medications. They shoot up a supermarket. They try to kill themselves. I know I jumped way over in left field, but that does happen. Wes says Pink Floyd was musically talented. I was surprised to learn in my 30s. Yeah, the songwriter was fantastic. Even though the band hated him because they didn't like his music, but they still sing it though, don't they? Debbie says, I live in California and I'm grateful you're sharing this information with me. Well, I'm glad you're getting something out of it. I'm just trying to share with people. Chris says, Dave Mustaine, Mr. One Note. I don't know who that is. Goes to show you how old I am. I don't know who it is. Samuel says a lot of metal singers are far better than pop singers. The moment when they sing calmly without growling, the beat, most normal singers are pretty bad. Yeah. And that's why they have the auto tune and that's why they mumble. Doc says, I'm not on TikTok, but every time someone shares something from there, it seems like a mental health facility. Every time I spot something from TikTok, it's some girl like trying to show her butt or something. Wes says it's hard to track two chats. You should be seeing the comments from both on either channel. Because we had a problem with that. I tried this once before, and you should be seeing the comments from both. And if you're not, let me know and I'll try to work on it again. Armin says his hobby is coffee talk on Thursday. I don't always get a chance to do it. I don't always get a chance to do it. But, it's a chance for me, though, to get to know some of the people who watch a little bit. So just let everybody know I appreciate them. I do. Because Lord knows, you see one chat, Doc? Okay, I'll have to check on that. I'll have to ask my brand ambassador. My brand ambassador is my wife. She's the one that set this up. So it's being seen on both channels, but the comments aren't on both channels. All right. Okay, CT. Yeah, I'll ask. I'll ask. We'll look at it again. Chris says, I've seen a lot of TikTokers promoting fat acceptance and Marxism. That's because that's what China wants them to promote, because they sure don't show that garbage in China. All this stuff is educational. It's like the educational channel. But anyway, Lord knows YouTube doesn't appreciate me. They treat me like crap, ban my videos, send me warnings, give me strikes, threaten me, tell me that I can't say certain words. and then and I know I'm mostly preaching to the choir, but at least I can connect with a handful of like-minded people who understand where I'm coming from, even if they don't agree. And that's all right if you don't agree with something that I said. It's okay. And maybe I'll get something wrong. Always look it up for yourself. And I tell people, you don't have to take my word for it. You can check it out. I can make mistakes. Wes says, I think that maybe what it was had live chat on pop out chat and top on this one. Okay. And Chris says YouTube censorship has gotten much worse for creditors or creators, sorry, and contents alike. Yeah, because I'm a content creator now. That's what they call us, content creator. CT is YouTube is dad criticizing you. Yeah, well, YouTube is more like dad getting the belt out and grounding you, as opposed to criticizing. Oh, here's something funny. You know who Pete Booty Juice is, right? Pete Booty Juice or Boot. I know that's not really his name, but that's what I ended up calling him. The transportation minister, or whatever the hell the title is. You know, he has a comic book. Who knew that? Is it Buttigieg? Is that correct? Buttigieg or Buttigieg? Did you know he has a comic book? Who knew this? Show of hands. Who knows this guy's got a booty juice? Yeah. Peter Booty Juice. Who knew he has a comic? Promoting his political authority. Do you believe me? I just want to see if anybody knows he has that. Zane says, I remember the Viacom court days. I just want to see if anybody... Thank you. Transportation Secretary. Yeah. Who somehow had a child with another man. Not sure how that works. I didn't know what Doc says. The Transportation Secretary, I said minister, but Transportation Secretary, who he's got a kid with another dude. Yeah, I know, his husband. This Transportation Secretary that wanted to go to the site of the disaster in Ohio and complain about how highway exits are racist. Oh, I see what you're saying. Zane says, I didn't imagine YouTube would turn into Viacom 2.0. Yeah, John says statism is a cult. Now, since you didn't know it, I'll show it to you. This is his comic book. Yeah, he told people if they can't afford gas to buy an electric Tesla, those things are expensive. This is a comic book. It is his political comic book where he talks about the story of his life. Yeah, highway exits are racist. They divide poor and rich communities. And of course, all poor communities are black. You can't convince me of that living in Georgia. I've been to Atlanta. There's a lot of extremely wealthy black people in Atlanta. The story of his life and his trials. You thought I was kidding. Somebody thought I was kidding, right? And of course, it talks about his gayness and his heroes, like this person, and his picture in here. I won't show it. There's a picture of him in here making out with his husband. I collect comic books, and this was in a box lot that I bought of some of the other comics. Cruising says, I got in a traffic jam in Atlanta on my way south. I've never seen so many cars. Yeah, it's bad. Yeah, that's what they call Spaghetti Junction. CT says that seems to be the trend. Two married guys buying, adopting a four. If you're adopting, you are buying. If you're adopting a child, you are buying one because it is expensive. It is expensive. I won't show you the picture of him making out with his husband. I'll show you this, though, because this is how he sees himself right here. It's how all these politicians see themselves. They think they're like the Egyptian pharaohs, and that their lives are going to be engraved in stone, and they're going to have huge monuments to their greatness. This is sickening. I don't care what politician it is. This is ridiculous right here. But I thought I would share this. So it's no worse than like when Obama was running for president in 2008 and he was writing children's books. Who remembers that? And they were promoting the Obama children's books, and the children's book was of him reading another story to a child. Stupid garbage. Tax dollars at work, because I bet you he didn't pay for this. Hell, he probably got paid for this garbage. Yeah. You learn something new every day. It says, Zane says, why not making out is allowed on YouTube? Because I don't want to watch people kissing. Who made the comic book? It says Tidal Wave. Is that right? Printed in the USA. Tidal Wave Productions. Tidal Wave Productions. But yeah, he's just a career politician, and I think it's ridiculous that he has a comic book. I think it's ridiculous for any politician to have a comic book. But I thought I would share that. I bet you that's something that most of you probably didn't see coming. Anyways, so we're at about an hour and 42 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for this evening. Thanks to everybody who joined us on Coffee Talk and on Prepper University. And if you are not subscribed to one, please do subscribe to the other so that you can catch us on both channels. I do collaborate a video between them sometimes, but usually it's different content. So, and of course, Coffee Talk is being mirrored on Rumble on Coffee Talk 2. So if something happens to me on Coffee Talk, you can find me on Coffee Talk 2 on Rumble. And it's Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter. And I do put posts there for, usually it's alerts to the videos or memes or something like that. Steven says, I need a haircut, huh? Okay. But anyways, again, thanks to everybody for joining us this evening. I'm going to go ahead and take off. It's time for dinner. And maybe we'll get a chance to do this again sometime soon.